Like, just say you're in Singapore, for example, you've got Japanese yen. You want to change money to Singapore dollars. You change it, right? And they give you Singapore dollars. You don't leave the Singapore dollars with the guy. You take it with you. All right, cool.
1, 2, 3, and we're rolling.
Hey, TG.
Hey, so this is good. This is Tracy with Weekly Fascination. I got my buddy Big V here, and we're going to talk about a bunch of things like crypto, privacy, cell phones, money, and probably a bunch of other things that get us in trouble.
Good hot rocking sex.
There you go.
Possibly. Who knows?
Oh, I forgot to tell you my mom listens to the podcast.
Sorry, Mum.
Okay. So, welcome back to the show. This is Tracy with Weekly Fascination. I got my buddy Big V here. We're going to edit that part out.
Okay.
I'm joking. No. Wait.
No censorship, please.
I don't edit anything other than like if I clear my throat. Yeah.
Right, cool.
Or ah or something. So, yeah. So, how's it going, man?
Well, excellent. I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Good.
Well, this is open mic session, I suppose.
Yes.
And just talk about what the hell, what's
anything you
in
want.
my brain.
Yeah. You've already gone there. So,
yeah. So I'm for my sins, the organizer, or a co-organizer of the Bitcoin Cash Tokyo meetup. Have been for a number of years now. We continue to do this throughout, whatever government nonsense is being imposed on us.
Yes.
Bars being closed down, and you can't serve alcohol after 8 o'clock, and because the virus might know what you're drinking, and God knows what other silly nonsense.
It only hovers like 5 feet above the ground. So if you're sitting down,
that's right,
eating, you can take your mask off. But if you're walking to your table, you have to put it on.
Yeah. So I dug my heels in very, very early on in this, and possibly against some of the other organizers who were in our group, who wanted to sort of follow the government recommendations. I was called a granny killer. I was called all sorts of names, blood on my hands, etc., etc. But I can tell you one thing. After 3 years now of continuous meetups with between 30 to 50 people per week, sometimes smaller, but sometimes bigger.
Yeah.
With no masks, and most people not vaccinated. Some people come vaccinated, we don't care, but that's fine.
We don't discriminate.
How many people died in our group?
Nobody I know.
Have a guess.
0.
Yeah, exactly.
Big fat 0. Yeah.
How many people got seriously? How many people hospitalized?
0.
Exactly. None. So I stand by my original digging my heels in at the beginning. This is all bullshit. You've been propagandized. And I think this is my new word. I'm actually trying to.
Is that a word? It's going to be like the Encyclopedia Britannica.
You can spell it with an S or a Z, as you Americans might call it.
A Z.
I'm going to call it Z because I'm English.
Sure.
But I think so many people have been propagandized to the point that they've lost touch with reality. And I've seen people sitting there wearing a mask, putting the mask down to chomp on their burger, and putting the mask back up again. I'm thinking, what has happened to you? You used to be a friend of mine. You used to have a spine. You used to have thought processes that were your own. And now you are
invertebrate.
You're captured.
Yeah.
Kind of. Anyway, sorry, none of this is about crypto. I do apologize. I often digress. Slap me hard if I digress.
I can't reach you, but
so the Bitcoin Cash meetup, I think, has been incredibly successful throughout this pandemic. I mean, there were attempts to sort of do online versions of it and things like that, which I think very noble. I think because some people actually thought that the virus was dangerous and that what we were doing was probably a bit irresponsible, etc., etc., etc. So they wanted to do their own thing, and that's fine. So we I tried to play along with all that and said, okay, well, why don't we have you on screen and you can join our meetup, on screen, etc., etc. But I think over time it sort of became a little bit long in the tooth, and people just wanted to meet in person.
Yeah, well, people need that.
Yeah,
people really need that in-person contact, I think.
And I think it's been, well, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, whatever, but it's been successful in the fact that it's survived. We are probably the biggest. I mean, one of our sort of long-time members who now no longer lives in Tokyo. He said, "You're probably the biggest meetup in the world.
Nice.
Cryptocurrency, not just Bitcoin Cash.
Wow.
Cryptocurrency.
Wow.
Because we do it every week. We're regular. We change our location every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And every single location where we have a meetup, our members pay with Bitcoin Cash.
That's right.
So we don't just talk the talk. We walk the talk. We use it.
Mm-hmm.
People pay for their food and drinks with Bitcoin Cash. And I think that's really important.
And is that a big differentiator? Because I'm only about a year and a half into the crypto world, and the people I know who buy other coins, they're either speculating and wild guesses, right? Like, well, this coin's coming out, I'm going to make $1 million. Or they're hodling, like they buy something and just hold it forever. Or Bitcoin Cash, they use it. Right? I mean, you go to a restaurant, buy a beer, right?
There's I guess two different categories of crypto people. There's the original crypto people who are in this space since the beginning, since, I'm talking 2012, 2013, 2014, right from the beginning. Bitcoin was a payment system. Satoshi Nakamoto wrote a white paper called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer digital electronic cash system. It's right there in the title. Hello, guys. Wakey, wakey. It's not a store of value. It's not just a store of value. It's payments. It's a cash system. Now, of course, there's. I don't want to bore your listeners too much with all the history, but there's obviously has been a takeover. The core team of BTC, now run by Blockstream. They don't like the idea of cash. They don't like the idea of payments. No, you've got to use something else called Lightning, some other off-chain thing that's kind of a bit complex, and it might not really work yet, but, give us another 6 months or whatever.
It's still in beta.
Yeah. So, look, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but Bitcoin Cash Bitcoin Cash is the original vision of Bitcoin, because simply remove that artificial limit on the block size to allow scalability. And there's no need to create this off-chain payment processing system called Lightning. In other words, it's a solution for something that wasn't even a problem in the first place. Just solve the problem on-chain, increase the block size. They were told not to, and there's a whole lot of reasons for that. And just to summarize for your humble listeners, I would recommend everybody to search a video. You can find it on the Bitcoin Cash podcast website, which I think is called bitcoincashpodcast.org. We can probably put that in the show notes later. There's a video there which is quite high up on the list of resources. It's called Who Killed Bitcoin? It's about 45 minutes long, and it's made by, I think, some of our community members from Latin America, that was Venezuela. But absolutely brilliant. It lays out exactly like what led up to the fork, what led up to the whole idea of, fees. I mean, the BTC core group was saying fees are good. We need more fees. Let's crack open a champagne.
Well, that's the annoying part with Bitcoin, is the fees.
Yeah. And so I think, I don't know what your percentage of your listeners are, sort of newcomers to crypto, whatever, but I'm often having to try to explain the history of things. Like, people say, why do you like Bitcoin Cash? What is this one? Why do you like Bitcoin or Ethereum and all this stuff? Like, well, it's the original Bitcoin. And I think probably the messaging was lost during the fork. I think arguably, and Roger says this often, he said it recently in one of his Roger Ver, by the way, chairman of Bitcoin.com, said that, Bitcoin Cash was within a razor's edge of adopting the ticker of BTC during the fork, right? Think about this, like there's one thing called Bitcoin, and there's this all sorts of conflicting views within the community, within the development community, within the mining community and whatever. But pretty much all the early adopters, all the people that were there at the beginning, for example, Roger, but for example, lots of other people who like Gavin Andreessen. I mean, for heaven's sake, Satoshi Nakamoto handed the keys to Gavin Andreessen, to the project, the keys to the Bitcoin Core project. He was eventually then frozen out because he, I think, unwittingly had other people coming into the project, and he ended up losing his access to the project because he was in favor of big blocks. Big blocks is what we mean by Bitcoin Cash. Bigger blocks means scalability. So how the hell is Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash going to become a solution for the world's payment processing problem without having scalability? I mean, BTC today, I mean, you can still only process about 7 transactions a second. It's nonsense. You can't use that.
Yep.
Their idea is push everyone into this lightning thing, and you've got to like commit a certain amount of Bitcoin into your channel first before you can use it, and it's all a bit complicated. And it's
and if you open up a new channel,
I'm not. To be honest, I haven't looked into it in all that much detail, but to me, it just seems like a solution to a problem that didn't need solving, because the solution is already there. It's called Bitcoin Cash.
Okay. So that solves the problem then.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
There we have it. Good.
Yeah. So now look, just before we go on, I mean, some people say, tut, Big V. Look at Bitcoin Cash in CoinMarketCap. You know, like a year ago, it was up there in the top 10. You know, before that was like even higher. It was like actually at one point it became something like, you know, almost 50% of the value of BTC. So if you're worried about prices and, you know, speculation and so on, yeah, sure, Bitcoin Cash does not look like a great investment opportunity. I'm not talking about investment opportunities. I'm talking about freedom opportunities. Okay. BTC is now a captured project. It's pretty much, I mean,
what do you mean by that?
Well, okay, so the project team is 100% Blockstream, which is a company funded by AXA, chairman of whom is Bilderberg Group. I'm convinced that their aim is to ensure that Bitcoin cannot be used as cash. I mean, they say it openly. It's not cash. It's
a store of
value. They've pretty much, excuse my French, shat on the idea of that's the past tense of shit, by the way. Use money, to use Bitcoin as money. Completely against Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, to the point that they've even tried to hide the white paper. Like, let's get rid of it. We want to remove it from Bitcoin.org. We want to remove it from, you know, the internet. Scrub it from history.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
Because they're controlled. They're completely captured.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this?
Well, try and download the white paper. Search for it.
Okay.
I mean, you can get it on the
about a year ago. Yeah.
Bitcoin.com. I mean, Roger's very staunch in, you know, keeping it alive on there, but you know, they tried. There was a movement to get rid of the white paper because, and they still say this: the white paper doesn't matter anymore. The world's moved on. Bitcoin's antiquated. You know,
Wow.
It should be a store of value instead of actually cash. So they're trying to change the. Or they actually. Let me step back. They're not trying to change the narrative. They have changed the narrative, and they very, very successfully changed the narrative to the point that almost the entire crypto marketplace has been successfully propagandized. Everybody believes this shit. We are in the minority. I mean, I get it. You know, Bitcoin Cash has got, okay, it's a small market cap now, whatever, but it has an amazing amount of development contributions to, and people who still wholeheartedly follow that vision and want to make this decentralized, non-custodial, peer-to-peer electronic cash, and you know, beyond that as well, tokens and smart contracts.
Tell me about smart contracts. This comes up all the time.
Yep.
And I'm a lawyer, but I don't give out any legal advice on this podcast ever. But I understand contracts. I understand like automated drafting. I understand that. I understand smart contracts. But contracts on blockchain. Did I even say that right?
All right, so let's go back to the beginning. So
Okay.
before Ethereum, there's a smart contract system already in place, already proposed and implemented
And
by
sorry, what's
on Bitcoin, BTC.
what's the best use case? Is it like a home lease, or is it what would I?
It's simplistic, right? So
Okay.
the UTXO, the unspent transaction output system, which kind of describes Bitcoin, BTC, and BCH, and all the other splits, like BSV, etc., and XEC. I think it's fair to say that since the early days, all the focus was on scalability back in towards the end of 2015, 2016, 2017. And Ethereum came about, and Ethereum was the smart contract system. It was based on a new type of model, based on what we can describe as the account model, versus the somewhat primitive, in inverted quotes, primitive model of UTXO. And I think, the huge success, of course, of Ethereum is massive, and the solidity has got massive uptake in terms of development community, and fantastic community, loads of smart contracts and whatever. But try to create a smart contract on Ethereum of any complexity, and put it out there, like, for example, to create a decentralized exchange. You're going to have to invest probably tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to commit that smart contract to the chain, simply because Ethereum has got a massive problem with scalability and fees, pretty much in parallel with BTC.
And those fees are called gas
fees.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So whilst the functionality is great and whatever, and I think it's fair to say that Solidity and the account model is very intuitive to developers. You don't need to be a brain surgeon or a rocket scientist to understand this stuff and to get your head around this sort of simplistic model. Mm-hmm. But it's based on something like what they call the Turing complete global state model of a massive computer.
Okay.
Right. And this massive computer is Ethereum. Right.
Okay. And
it all sounds wonderful, and everyone's like popping the champagne and everything. It's great. But when you start to try and use it, oh my God, it's hugely expensive. And this isn't really scalable, and it almost goes against the whole idea of peer-to-peer digital electronic cash, because you're having to commit to this bigger thing. And just to give an example, like back in, I think it must have been 2016 when CryptoKitties was going.
I remember the name. Yeah.
On Ethereum, everyone was, CryptoKitties is great, And so if you try to set up some other smart contract on Ethereum, your fees would be impacted and massively increased because of CryptoKitties. Nothing to do with what you're doing, but it happens to be on the same chain, and so you're having a massive financial hit.
Okay.
Because of some other person's project, right?
So it's not. Let's see. So the total volume on the chain affects my fees then?
It's not so much that. It's more like the architecture. This account model is almost based on this like global state machine.
Okay.
It's fairly hard to describe. And look, I must admit, I'm probably people might write comments and stuff. I'm not a massive expert on this, but what I've heard is that this is a massive problem on Ethereum, right? So now the nice thing about Bitcoin Cash, and I'm going to lead into cash tokens in a minute, is that we are, when I say we, I'm talking about not me personally, I'm not a developer, but the Bitcoin Cash community are developing a token system which will enable smart contracts, not just to Ethereum level, but far beyond that, with
Okay.
1,000 times more efficiency
Mm.
and 1,000 times more scalability than what we have today on Ethereum at a fraction of the cost, like pennies, right?
That's a huge hurdle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so to quote the developer, Jason Dreisner,
Okay.
in a recent podcast, he looked at this problem, right? So we've got Ethereum over here with this account model, and it's massively successful, it's great, whatever, but it's got problems. It's got problems because it's expensive, and every time you use Ethereum, I mean, ask your listeners, have you used Ethereum? If yes, are you happy to pay the fee that you paid? It leaves a bad taste in the mouth.
Yep.
Mostly. Why the hell did I pay that fee when I just paid for my burger down at, Two Dogs Tap Room in Tokyo?
Yeah.
And my fee was 0.1 yen.
Which Two Dogs accepts
Of course.
Bitcoin Cash.
We've got 80 plus venues in Tokyo that accept Bitcoin Cash. You don't notice the fee because there's less. When I talk about yen for the international people listening in, 1 yen is about 1 cent.
Yeah.
Right. So we're talking about a fraction of a cent of a fee for all transactions. It doesn't matter if you're sending $1 million or $1. And that will always be the case because we have scalability on Bitcoin Cash, right?
Okay.
So when you're setting up a complex smart contract or complex like a decentralized exchange, for example, you're not going to have a massive fee to set it up like hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's like pennies.
Okay. So even the restaurant owners, people who accept Bitcoin Cash, they're not paying these massive fees, and that's a huge problem.
No, the people accepting pay zero. It's the person sending.
Okay, that's even better because if you run a restaurant and you're paying these, what's the fee to use a credit card to accept it, like American Express or MasterCard or
I
something?
mean, it's at least 1%.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
And so there's already, and the restaurant business is there's a very small margin.
But they pay more in terms of surveillance and tracking and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. But if you pay 1% of everything you take in, then there's less that goes to your employees and supplies and profit and all that.
Yeah,
So
correct.
back to smart contracts. So I'm familiar with paper contracts. You can use them for anything, right? What's the best use case for a smart contract?
All right. Well, so I mean, let's bring it back to basics. So you talked about like paper contracts, right? So
Are they analogous at all?
I think they are actually, yeah, because when you look at, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I deal with legal things in my job and whatever. So you can look at, everything has to be somehow quantified.
Okay.
And therefore, consequences on, depending on whatever the scenario is, everything has to be covered by the legal language. So it's kind of limited by English, I suppose, or whatever language it's written in. The thing I love about smart contracts is that it's decentralized. There isn't a third-party middleman involved. The code is law. The code is law.
Okay.
This is a phrase that was used very early on in Ethereum, and until such time when there was the code actually broke and there was some kind of race condition, and one of the DAOs ended up breaking, and some hacker caused a sub DAO which created like a drain on the main DAO, and some guy ran off with all the money.
Ooh.
And so Vitalik and his buddies at Accenture and the big banks and all the people that were funding Ethereum decided, wait a minute, we need to rewind the blockchain and censor these transactions. And because we can't allow this to happen, right?
Okay.
Now that is when alarm bells started going off in my head, and I thought, wait a minute, you said the code is law, and okay, there may have been a bug in the code. All right, okay, cool. Right.
Sounds a little Animal Farm to me. Yeah.
Yeah, but suddenly you're saying, oh, we can't allow that particular bug, but yeah, the code was the law, and so. That's what led to the fork, which created Ethereum Classic. Ethereum Classic is basically Ethereum without that censorship code written. Because basically they just added some code saying these addresses are banned, right? These transactions are banned. Everything else is cool.
Retroactively, right?
Yeah. So that's what is ETH, Ethereum is. Ethereum Classic is same thing without those censored transactions. So, sorry guys, I'm with the uncensored gang because, if you're going to put your money in a smart contract and, okay, maybe there's a bug in it, you should have looked at the code. It's on you, right?
Yeah.
You said the code is law, and then you suddenly go, oh no, the code isn't law. We're playing God. We're censoring you. So I'm actually, as much as I'm very pro the development community on Ethereum, I think there's a great, amazing group of developers and community contributors in Ethereum. I think ultimately it's trending towards how can I say, normality. Look at them now, right? They're censoring transactions. Any transaction that's got some kind of association with Tornado Cash is censored. So wait a minute, I tried to, anonymize my transaction, and now my transaction is null and void. So how is this different from Justin Trudeau censoring or blocking people's bank accounts because of their views on whether they should, support a bunch of demonstrators in Canada, right?
And this goes back to, a lot of reasons people get into any kind of crypto in the first place is they want that freedom. They don't want to. So the big thing in let's just make up a fake country where they don't allow you to have anything made with turquoise in color. And I go use my credit card to buy some turquoise from the store, and my social credit score goes down because I bought turquoise, and that's banned. Or I imported it, or and I worked in criminal law for a very short time during law school, and one way they catch killers is they say, okay, he went to the Home Depot, the DIY store, went to the Home Depot, bought a shovel, some masking tape, and some rope. And guess what?
Yeah.
His ex-girlfriend got found with masking tape over her face, tied up, and he used the shovel to dig a shallow grave. And then his GPS on his phone, which we'll get into in a minute, the GPS on his phone, they were able to locate him using that in the place where her body was found. So, and it's not like people who are doing crypto want to do it to commit crimes, even though there was a Silk Road and all that stuff. But if I want to go buy something from somebody and I don't want somebody else to know about it, right? Maybe I'm just getting a birthday present from my mom. Maybe it's, whatever. And it's nothing illegal at all. I just don't want that out there. If I pay somebody peer-to-peer in some kind of crypto that's untraceable, private, isn't that one reason a lot of people got into crypto in the first place?
Exactly. And look, it always comes down to freedom and privacy, right?
For the Americans, privacy.
Or privacy.
Sorry.
Privacy.
Talk British. I don't care. I get it. I get it.
Pronunciations. So look, I think, when we're talking about hiding your transactions, Bitcoin obviously and Bitcoin Cash is a public ledger, and there are methods of tracing back who paid what to who, because there are certain touch points where, of course, somebody in the chain would have used an exchange where they had to do KYC, and then their identity is known and whatever. So eventually, you could be caught somehow and say, "Oh, you just spent a whole load of Bitcoin, or you've received a whole load of Bitcoin. Here's a tax bill from the government," right? So I recommend to people use Cash Fusion. So this may not be known to everybody, but go to cashfusion.org. And this is not a new idea. This goes back to the early days of Bitcoin. Everybody was using Bitcoin mixers on BTC in the early days for the very same reason. But back then they were third-party organization. So you have to trust them. You send your Bitcoin in, they'd mix it up, and they'd send it back to you. And in some cases, they'd fuck off with your money. I'm sorry, French. they would, you wouldn't see your money again because they're fraudulent, right? The beautiful thing about Bitcoin Cash, and we've had this now for, I don't know, a couple of years since some upgrade, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, the capability to have mixing built into your wallet. You don't have to lose custody of your coin. It stays in your wallet. It stays in your custody. Your transactions are mixed with other people's transactions. So you have pretty much, I would say, the same amount of anonymity that you would get from other privacy coins like Monero and whatever. But with the benefit, of course, the fact that that Bitcoin Cash is that much more usable in day-to-day situations. Like we've got, as I said, 80 plus bars and restaurants in Tokyo, plus, hotels, cheapair.com and, various websites. You can find them all in the bitcoin.com wallet who accept this. So, and online services, I pay for my VPN, Mulvad, using Bitcoin Cash. And they don't require any name and address, phone number, identification, nothing. It's beautiful. This is what it's all about. This is what it was all about from the beginning. And we're now providing this on Bitcoin Cash, but I think the people who are now in BTC have forgotten all that. They forget the fact that Microsoft and Dell and Steam and all these huge organizations were accepting BTC back in 2013, 2014. Bitcoin was the new big, huge thing. And,
big camera.
And suddenly, Big Camera still does, but that's another story. I'll come on to that in a second. Okay. But it was, it was all about adoption. Adoption. And suddenly, change your narrative because they were captured. Now it's not about adoption. It's not about using it as cash. They all stopped using it because the fees were too high. The fees became ridiculous and users didn't want to use it anymore. Big Camera, by the way, is kind of, they're partnered with Big Camera, by the way, to our foreign listeners, is an electronics sort of lifestyle store in Tokyo. Fantastic place. They were early adopters to accept Bitcoin, so fair play to them. But they did it through a local exchange called BitFlyer. Now, BitFlyer hasn't been all that friendly towards Bitcoin Cash, to be fair. For example, if I want to sell BTC by BCH, I've got to sell it to yen first, and then I've got to buy. So they put all these hurdles in place, and that's because they're 100% in bed with the regulators. They are. I wouldn't recommend, if anyone's holding cryptocurrency, anyone listening, anyone's holding cryptocurrency in BitFlyer or any exchange for that matter, pull it out. Put it into your wallet on your phone or a hardware wallet, because as we always say, not your keys, not your coins.
Absolutely.
If you don't understand what that means, it means if you don't hold the private key to your cryptocurrency, it ain't yours. And we've just seen this with FTX, with the guy with a crazy frigging hairstyle.
That guy,
right?
He knew nothing about what he...
Big V, what do you think? I'm going to have to put a Scottish accent or something and just disguise my true identity. What do you think about FTX? Is that going to kill crypto? Is it going to kill Bitcoin? And I always say to them, what do you even mean by that?
Yeah, right.
This is about as much to do with crypto as a squash tomato sandwich. There's no difference between this. Well, actually, there's quite a bit of difference between this and Mt. Gox. What I was going to say was, it's the same sort of idea. Mt. Gox, for those people who are too young to know, was an exchange in Tokyo that collapsed back in 2014, I think. I was involved in it, and lots of other people in Tokyo, in this city, lost a lot of money, but actually some of us might be, quids in because the price has gone up that much. And even if we're only going to get 15% of what we had, 15% of what we had back then is massively up on the price of what we paid for it.
And this is one reason, by the way, I didn't get into crypto, because I came back to Japan after living in America for a while. I came back to Japan in 2014, and Mt. Gox was all over the news.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought, well, I'm never going to get into that.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose all my money. So.
The guy that was splashed across the newspapers on the Financial Times, the CNN webpage. You can probably look him up. He's holding a sign up saying, "Mount Gox, where's our money?" Right? He is a regular attendee of our meetup. When he's in Tokyo, he's actually just gone back there to. Well, I won't say where he's gone for anonymity reasons, but
his residence.
So, look, there's a lot of history. Our meetup, by the way, we're not just a bunch of Bitcoin Cash fanatics, whatever. We started out as the Bitcoin Tokyo meetup before Bitcoin Cash existed.
Yeah.
Right. We are, and I'll give a shout out to Tracy at the Pink Cow.
Oh, Tracy. The other Tracy.
It was the first establishment, as far as I'm aware, to actually accept Bitcoin before any other variants were announced, and had an ATM set up in her place, and huge meetups were going on there, and
Tracy, by the way, at Pink Cow, they have excellent Mexican food. They're in Akasaka.
Yep.
Great place.
If you're in Tokyo, get down there.
Yes, you can get excellent Mexican food in Tokyo.
And they accept Bitcoin Cash. They accept other cryptocurrencies too.
Okay.
And huge respect to Tracy and all the other early adopters. We've got so many other amazing establishments like Downtown Bees, also in Roppongi. Beautiful curry there. Okay. And untold numbers of bars around Akasaka, Tokyo, Irish Bar Crack, run by Eddie.
Eddie's a great guy.
Yeah. So you can spend Bitcoin Cash in Tokyo. And so what we're trying to do is create an ecosystem where, every week people come and, buy and sell and actually use. It's not just a buy and hold type of, let's just treat it as an investment kind of thing. And that has a great impact because, people then trade it with each other and people use it to move value around.
For example, we stepped out to get a bite and one guy didn't have any cash. He just paid me in Bitcoin Cash. I paid fiat, and he said, "Oh, here, open up your phone." And he just sent me some Bitcoin Cash right there.
And actually, that's one thing I would like to try to increase the visibility of Tokyo, because we've heard a lot about St. Kitts in the Caribbean, or Caribbean, as you may say, who are actually evaluating whether to adopt Bitcoin Cash as a legal tender.
Oh, wow.
In their country. Some of the politicians actually came to the Bitcoin Cash meetup to announce this a couple of weeks ago. So that's really exciting. But, I think we need to try and promote more visibility of Tokyo, because I think we've got a huge community here that are using it, possibly just quietly, and it's just maybe it's just day-to-day thing.
And by the way, it's not just foreigners. A lot of Japanese.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And people come from other countries and come and use Bitcoin Cash.
Exactly.
I actually saw, I think it was you converted there was an Aussie or a British woman there. Not that I get the two confused, I just forgot. But she was in front of Crack, and we're out there having a drink. She said, "What are you guys doing?" And I think it was you said, "Oh, we're doing it's a Bitcoin Cash meetup." She said, "What's that?" And you showed her a wallet and then sent her 500 yen. I think it was you, wasn't it?
No, I normally said 1,000 yen now.
1,000, okay.
Because of inflation.
Okay.
So I'm actually, don't tell my wife, I don't know if my wife's listening, but hopefully not, but because I do send 1,000 yen to newcomers.
Wow.
And that's from my own pocket. Actually, I do get some contributions from Satoshi's Angels as well, so we must give a shout out to Akane and the Satoshi's Angels, because they've promoted our meetups and, of course, donated to some of the contributions to newcomers as well.
Okay, and then usually drinks are, 500, 600 yen, so you can get your first drink with that.
And my message to everyone is open up or install a wallet, open it up. I'm going to give you some money. Do with it what you want.
Yeah.
There's because actually Japanese people are quite afraid now. Why are you sending me money? Do you want me to do something for you?
No.
Are you they're very afraid.
What's the catch?
They're always looking for, there must be something. No, actually, I'm just being really kind.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to educate you. Here's some free money that you can do exactly what you want with it. You don't ever have to see me.
And I think that's very effective.
Take it away, spend it, use it, or just delete it. Up to you.
I
Doesn't
think
matter.
it's very effective because if you were to say somebody, give me 1,000 yen cash right now and I'll send you some Bitcoin cash and then you can use it at the bar. But if they're playing with the house's money and they go buy a drink, they're like, oh, I just paid for a drink in Bitcoin cash. Oh, it was easy. Oh, and they said it was 500 yen. They deducted 500 yen. It works.
So the sort of ironic thing is people think it's some sort of scam. We're like, well, hang on. If it's a scam, I would be asking you to send me money, not the other way around. I'm giving you free money. Don't worry.
So it's just about adoption then. And just, it seems, sometimes one at a time, but maybe through this podcast, even more people. Maybe people in other countries,
Yeah.
And so we talk a lot about Tokyo, but Bitcoin Cash is not a Tokyo thing, right?
No, absolutely not. It's global. Actually, I was talking to my brother. I have a twin brother. Sorry, I'm giving away my anonymity.
Oh, the poor world.
But no,
one V is too much for the world.
He's an amazing guy.
Okay.
Not just because he shares the same DNA as me, but he's possibly not related to the podcast, but he swims in the sea every single day, regardless of the weather, even if it's snowing. No wetsuit, whatever.
What part of the world is he? You don't have to give.
He's in southwest England, so it gets bloody cold.
It's cold.
I went swimming in the sea with him in March, and I can tell you, there was a fair amount of shrinkage going on.
Are you a Seinfeld fan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but it was actually,
bloody cold.
I must say, afterwards, I felt amazing.
You feel amazing, right?
It's a great feeling, and he does this every day, and so he's like massively healthy.
So
fantastic.
I have ties to Izu in Shizuoka Prefecture.
Oh yeah,
Izu Peninsula, and I was down there for the New Year one time, and I thought, well, for the New Year, I'm going to do a cold plunge. I'm going to do it.
Which part of Izu?
Near Shimoda.
Shimoda, yeah.
I thought, well, I'm just going to go jump in the ocean on New Year's Day around sunrise.
Yeah.
So I borrowed a car, drove down there, jumped in the ocean, and it was. I didn't really go out that far. I actually just kind of like laid down on the beach and let the waves hit me.
Yeah.
And I told my brother who lives in Scandinavia, I said, bro, you wouldn't believe, man. I jumped in the ocean on New Year's Day and it was freezing and I felt so good.
Yeah.
And he said, oh yeah, there's people who do that in Denmark too. I said, like for New Year? He said, no, every morning.
Yeah, exactly. So
what?
Okay, here's a challenge for you.
Yeah, okay.
So one of our listeners, I'm sure he might be listening in, G Voluntary from Niigata.
Okay.
He's one of our regular attendees at our meetup. He's also a member of our Unmuzzled Society, which is another meetup.
That's the secret society.
It's kind of
not anymore. But
it was secret until I just mentioned it. We're all about not wearing masks and not taking vaccines and not following the government orders.
Also, unmuzzled as in free speech, right? You can say whatever the hell you want. Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So he is arranging. And apparently he does this every year, where you have to go and stand under some waterfall in February, naked in Niigata, like there's snow everywhere.
Is it going to be guys? Are going to be pretty girls?
Well, possibly.
Because if we're getting naked, I'm like,
I don't think it matters to that point. You might look like a pretty girl.
That's true.
Because your knob will be so small, it might look like a clitoris.
It's not going to be much to look at that point, right? Like, in fact,
we'll all become gender neutral.
You probably be so cold you won't even be looking around, right? Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not sure the date of it, but if G Voluntary is listening, I'm going to send him the link to this podcast.
Okay, yeah.
Hopefully let's send a contingent
of
Tokyo
PCH people to Niigata
to join in. Yeah, I think that's
stand under the waterfall.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. That's the thing. Like I listen to Joe Rogan, and he does a cold plunge every morning. And I've watched these people, like these strongmen in Iceland, and they YouTubers who will like punch a hole in the ice in a lake and jump in the water. And Andy Frisella, give him a shout out to Andy Frisella, the real AF. It's Andy Frisella, but it also means real as, But Andy Frisella does 75 hard, which Kentaro and I did, and a couple others in the group did.
Yeah.
And I finished it. Not everybody did. 75 days with 2 workouts a day, blah, blah, blah. But the next phase is you take a cold shower. I haven't started that yet, and I can't guarantee I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to promise on this podcast. But Andy Frisella does cold showers. A lot of people do cold showers. They say it does amazing things for your health, as well as your brain function, your energy.
But whilst you're doing a cold shower, you got to like do some brain exercises as well, right? So apparently, I can't remember the name of the method, but I do recall that I read this in a book by the name escapes me, but
the book about memory, right?
The book was the method was formulated by John McEnroe's tennis coach.
No way.
And he basically said, you've got to stand under like freezing cold water, not just like tepid.
So we're talking like 1 degree Celsius, 33 degrees Fahrenheit.
Well, I don't know about the detail, but
really cold.
Uncomfortably cold. And you've got to count from 100 to 0 backwards.
Wow.
And it's quite difficult to do that when when your body's under temperature stress.
Yeah.
And the idea is, okay, and you get to a certain point and your brain just can't do it anymore. And then you get to like 56 or something and you just skip it. You just keep going. Wow. And then just turn it up to a bit warm again and then do it again. The next time, so that trains one part of your brain, which is numbers, and then you do the same thing again, and you decide to do girls' names. In alphabetic order. So like Annabelle, Belinda, Christine, Donna, etc., etc. And it's surprisingly hard. I mean, I can do it easily now because I'm not under stress, but when you're under stress of cold water, it's really hard to do that. But if you do it every day, you're basically training your brain to deal with that level of stress. And I think it's Mike Cernovich is the name of the guy.
Okay, I know
the book is called Gorilla Mindset.
Okay.
Very, very good. I recommend to everybody to read that.
Okay.
It's primarily aimed at men, but women, I think, or people who identify as women, or whatever, can get a lot of benefit from that book. I think it's really good advice.
You know what works really well too, especially if you're prone to anxiety. And I'm not talking about clinical anxiety. I mean just getting anxious or unable to concentrate sometimes. Working out really hard.
Right.
Do something difficult, and then the rest of the day is ezy.
Yeah. I think so.
So cool. Can we move into graphene phones?
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Yeah. So, did we round off? I just before we go on, I suddenly jumped onto my brother and swimming in the sea and stuff. And
we were talking about rewind. Is Bitcoin Cash a Tokyo thing?
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
I was just talking to my brother who swims in the ocean, and then we got to naked waterfalls.
So I'm sending Bitcoin Cash to my brother, who loves it, and he's then sending English pounds, otherwise known as Great British pounds, to my son, who's studying in Scotland to pay for his school fees. So I'm avoiding, banking fees and God knows what else.
International banking fees are insane.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it takes time. So how fast does the money get to your brother? Or the Bitcoin Cash?
Bitcoin Cash transaction takes like a fraction of a second. And it happens 24 hours a day, 27 days a week. So you don't have to, it's not like banks where you got to wait for it to it's a Saturday, sorry, you got to wait for Monday. Oh, sorry, Monday's a holiday, you got to wait till Tuesday. All this bullshit. Oh, and we're going to charge you $50 or something.
And we're going to call you. So there was a point where I sent yen to America, and I got a call from my bank, and they said, what's the money for? And they have a list of questions they have to read. They said, will this money be used for terrorist activity? I'm like, what? They said, well, we have to ask.
I want to say to them, actually, by the way, probably I shouldn't say it to them. I was thinking, we mentioned my Unmuzzled Society earlier, which is another sort of underground, well, we don't literally meet underground. Oh, actually it is, no, because it's in the basement.
Yes.
Just thought about that, it's an underground meetup where we try to pull together all the different things that we could use to try to claw back the freedoms that we've lost in the last 2 or 3 years under this so-called pandemic, which is obviously, I think, well, certainly in my view, fake. So obviously things like financial freedom, information freedom, We can come onto the phones and the graphene phones and so on. Freedom of movement, freedom of speech. They've been hammering us on all fronts in the last few years, and I think it's time that we stand up and fight against it. We need to come together. We need to form kind of groups and share information. We need to jump off of the social media platforms that most people seem to trust and use. I've had arguments with people about things like Telegram and Elon Musk, and we can talk about all these people, right? I mean, let's talk about Twitter. I mean, everyone, so many people in the cryptocurrency space, they're all like cheering and clapping. Oh, isn't it great? Elon Musk is, isn't he a champion of freedom of speech? I will tell everybody here, he cannot be trusted. Look at his heritage. Look at his grandfather was the chairman of the Canadian Trilateral Commission. This is the technocracy, right? He's part of the whole thing. What he's doing is just distracting us all to try and make us all like happy and get on his side, and then he'll slam dunk us all. Right?
Well, it's interesting. He warns about AI, but then he has a company called Neuralink. It wants to plant something into your head, and who knows what that'll do, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I haven't read too much about that, but what I have read, and I would recommend everybody to read, James Corbett. He's some people might call him a conspiracy theorist, but other people call him a freedom blogger and journalist based in Japan. He has done some excellent analysis on Elon Musk, and also Graham Smith. You can read his articles on bitcoin.com. He's one of the guys he actually joins our meetups, so come along and meet him in person. He and I have discussed this ad nauseum, actually, because Elon Musk goes along with everything that the government goes along with, right? If you believe in climate change, you are propagandized. If you believe in COVID-19 pandemic, COVID is dangerous, you are propagandized. If you believe vaccines are necessary to protect your children, whatever, you are propagandized, right? If you believe in all this shit, Elon Musk is pushing all this shit, right? He's not a friend. Right? He says freedom of speech, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I'll invite Donald Trump back onto Twitter, right? But it doesn't invite Alex Jones, for example. Right? Oh, because Alex Jones, he's just a little bit too much.
Alex Jones made a comment about children, and Elon Musk had a child die, and I think that's...
His child died in his arms.
The rationalization he used, but you can't let your emotions make that decision for you.
Yeah.
Right.
So I do not trust Elon Musk as far as I can throw him. And everybody who thinks, oh, isn't it great that he's now, in charge of Twitter? I think, get the fuck off Twitter. Twitter was never good. It never will be good. It's shit. And this is why, and pardon me for digressing a bit, but all big tech platforms you should get off them. Use alternatives, right? I do not use Twitter. I do not use Line. I don't use WhatsApp. I do not use Facebook. I do not use Instagram. I do not use any of these things, but I still have an influence because I influence people through meetups, through people, person-to-person, meetings, and interactions. And emails, right? You can do this, right? I always say to people say, "Oh, I can't leave Facebook because I'm going to lose contact with all my friends and my family." Well, what did you do before Facebook? Actually, this is the thing. A lot of people are too young; they didn't know the world before Facebook. Well, we used to actually send people photographs in the post.
Yeah.
Or come and visit me. I'll show you my pictures of my holiday in Ibiza.
Yeah.
And here's my album. You'd print them out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just really trying to get people back into that mind space of you don't have to share your most intimate, everyday interactions with people to a third party in order to share them. You can still share them. You can use something called Session, which is what I use. A Session is a fantastic decentralized, non-custodial messaging application. And in fact, the lead developer of Session is coming to Tokyo to join one of our meetups in a couple of weeks' time, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, I won't be here. I need to travel, but it's great that, I mean, he's recognized the work that we've been doing here to expand the number of people using Session. We've got hundreds and hundreds of users now using Session. The whole Bitcoin Cash community is on Session. Session is, for those who don't know, it's like Telegram, but without the centralized server. If you're using Telegram, how do you know what is being surveilled?
Yeah, you don't.
You don't. There's a centralized server, and it's not open source, and it's run by a bunch of Russians somewhere. Actually, I'm not saying anything bad about Russians, but, you don't know, right? So it's all based on trust. And so I'm very, very skeptical about that. I was the biggest fan of Signal, by the way. I pushed Signal. I got literally thousands of people into Signal since the days it was called Text Secure back in the early days. But it requires a telephone number to register. Somebody sent me a link today saying, actually, Telegram doesn't need a telephone number anymore to register. You can register anonymously. Okay, well, that's great. But it's still a centralized service, and it's still not open source. So I still don't trust it. And actually, this is probably a shot across the bows of a lot of the other crypto community people who might be listening. Why are you trusting Telegram? You're all about decentralization, yet you're using a centralized messaging application. All of your communities are based on Telegram. I think that's really a big mistake. Look at Session. Or something else that might be as good as Session. Well, let's make another one. There are other ones like Noise.cash, which is like an equivalent to Twitter, and there's Memo.cash, which is like an equivalent to Medium. These all exist already. And actually, Graham, who I mentioned earlier, Graham Smith, G Voluntary, he publishes all of his articles on Noise.cash and Memo.cash.
Nice. So, speaking of smartphones,
yes.
Let's get into that. That's very exciting.
All right. So, where do we start? Okay, look, most people use Apple or Android, right? And most people they don't realize it, but they're captive. They're already in some sort of jail. They've got a Google account or they've got an Apple account.
Okay.
And the phone is tracking them. And I actually like to explain to people that this phone isn't yours. It's theirs. And you belong to them. And you've paid money for this.
Right? Great scam.
Right? It doesn't belong to you. This doesn't belong to you. Everything, all the software that's running on it is run by them.
Oh yeah, if the EULA end user license agreement, nobody reads that. They just click, yes, I read it. Agree to the terms, yes.
Exactly.
If you've ever read one of those, it always says, first of all, we don't have any liability if this breaks your phone or your device. This does not belong to you. You're using it with a license, which means you haven't bought it. You're borrowing it or you're paying it, or it's free, which means you're the product. And we can revoke this license at any time without notice.
Yeah.
So you're right. They own it.
Yeah.
And even the hardware, the phone, if you go to any of these major carriers around town, you're basically renting or leasing the phone. And at the end of 2 years, you give it back.
Yep. And the thing that really gets me is that a lot of people in our so-called freedom-based society, freedom-loving activist groups, don't get it. They will set up let's arrange a demo and let's arrange a line group. Let's organize it all online, right? For those people outside of Japan, Line is basically well, it's actually, I think, a Korean company, but it's they've got the monopoly. It's like WhatsApp, but it's what everybody uses. But it's 100% in bed with the government. And so if you do anything online, you can pretty much guarantee that the government are listening in and watching and doing stuff. So like, how are we going to ever beat the system if we're using the platforms provided by the system? So this is why I keep trying to tell people, don't use applications and systems and services as much as possible provided by the system. So get rid of Google, and I'll tell you how you can do that in a minute. Get rid of Apple. I'll tell you how you can do that in a minute. Get rid of all this shit that is actually working against you. You're carrying around this thing in your pocket or in your handbag if you're a girl, and you think it's yours. Everything in there is being offered up to the powers that be to work against you. Now, most people say, "Oh, I don't have anything to hide."
Yep.
That's the common argument. Like,
yep.
Well, that might be true. And so did the people who were on the trains on the way to the death camps in Germany. They didn't have anything to hide until it was the point where they didn't have anywhere to run, right? And I know that sounds a bit extreme, and I do apologize. It's not anti-Semitic or anything like that, but you don't know what you don't have to hide until they come after you on the things that they decide are the things you want to hide.
You've seen the meme, the knock on the door, and we saw your Facebook post and we need to talk to you.
Yeah.
It's the cops, you know.
Exactly. You posted something 4 years ago that we find to be constituting hate speech. So we're going to kick down your door and arrest you and fine you, or you're going to lose your job. That's where we're going. Now, people in Japan might not see this currently, but this is happening in the UK. It's happening across Europe. It's certainly happening in the US and Canada. We've seen people in Canada having their bank accounts frozen because they dared to actually donate some money to some people who they thought were, nobly, promoting freedom.
This is one reason that a lot of people that are in jail over political activities, let's not name any, but somebody who's in jail over a political activity, they set up a GoFundMe or a Give, Send, Go or something.
Yeah.
And anybody who contributes to that gets investigated because you're contributing to a untried and unconvicted, but they're still an enemy of the state. They're a criminal.
Yeah.
So if I, for example, let's use me, if I break into a courthouse and steal court records, whatever, and I go to jail for that, and I'm waiting for trial, and a bunch of my friends get online and are on some website and say, hey, Tracy's in jail. He didn't do it. Let's send him money for his legal defense fund. And if they have decided I'm a bad guy, and all my friends contribute money to my legal defense fund, now they're going to get investigated. And it's ridiculous.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Is that a good case for crypto, Bitcoin Cash?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because you can contribute money through Bitcoin Cash, and they cannot stop it. It's uncensorable. So, and this is, I think, probably the blunder of Justin Trudeau and all his stooges. They said, we can censor your money. Well, actually, they could censor people's money if they were holding it in an exchange. And this again comes back to what we always say, don't keep your bloody crypto money in an exchange. Everybody listening, rule number 1, don't leave your money in an exchange. It could be FTX, it could be Mt. Gox, it could be CoinCheck, it could be millions of different. Literally, we have about 6 of these a year that collapse. Everyone says to me, "What do you think about coin? What do you think about FTX?" I say, "It's the same as the last one. Is this same shit happens over and over again? Don't leave your money." And I always use the sort of story like if you're traveling through a city somewhere, you go to a money changer, right? Say you're trying to change. Just say you're in Singapore, for example. You've got Japanese yen. You want to change money to Singapore dollars. You change it, right? And they give you Singapore dollars. You don't leave the Singapore dollars with the guy. You take it with you.
That's true. Perfect example.
You don't leave it with him because he might disappear and You know, you don't. So the whole point is, the exchanges, money you think you have an exchange, you don't actually have an exchange. You've got a claim to it, but that's subject to all sorts of regulations and things like that. And then just like a bank, actually, it's just like a bank.
KYC. So I had.
Can I have more whiskey?
Yeah. Let's pause for a second here. And we're back. So we were talking about privacy. We're going to get into graphene phones. Here's a funny thing. A lot of the people who are in the crypto community are really into online privacy. And you're just talking about getting Google, Apple, all that off your phone. When I announce to people that I have a YouTube channel, they all just like recoil as if from a hot flame, that like they're watching The Exorcist or something. Like, no, get off of YouTube. But yeah, but I got a channel on YouTube. Oh no. And so I get not every person, but several people tell me different platforms. So I started using Rumble, and then I started using Odyssey, and what are the other ones? There's BitChute, right?
Yeah, Odyssey and Library,
okay,
etc.
Video sharing platforms, right?
Yeah.
That are not really competitors, but YouTube-esque, I guess. So, but I don't know if entertainment, so in conjunction with the podcast, this has really nothing to do with the podcast, even though the podcast and YouTube are online content. I use the same name, Weekly Fascination, which a coworker of mine gave me the idea. I said, I want
good name, catchy title.
Weekly show, and it's going to be fascinating people like you. And he said, well, just call it Weekly Fascination. I'm like, oh, that's it. I wrote it down, and that's been the brand name for all my content so far. But I do videos about life in Japan, and like hiking at Mount Takao. I do the illumination series, like all the different lights into the Christmas lights in Tokyo. So I do all that. So, but when I mentioned YouTube to some people at the Bitcoin Cash meetup, they're like, "Oh no, get off of YouTube!"
Well, look, people send me YouTube links all the time, and I'm trying not to throw up over my suit because I do wear a suit because I work in a bank. We could talk about that another time, but
another time,
or later. But it's okay because I've got something called Untrack Me, which maps your link to YouTube to a non-tracking mirror site. Cool. Which shows all the same videos, so I can watch your video without all the nasty ads and trackers and whatever. Okay. And it's called Untrack Me. You can install it if you and we can get onto Graphene in a minute, but if you're on an Android system, you can just install F-Droid, which is basically like an app store, but it only has open source software. And then you can search in there for Untrack Me, install that, and then you can click on any YouTube link that might be sent to you, and it will map it to a mirror site.
Okay.
So you won't get tracked. It's great.
Another thing I do is just like use, this is probably, you're going to laugh, right? I use a browser in incognito mode. If I'm going to look up something, is
this when you're looking at pornographic?
No, something medical or political or something that I think down the road,
I see.
Somebody might say like, oh, he was looking up something that 10 years later became misinformation or something. So if I watch a video on politics or medical or something like that, I'll go to incognito mode and don't sign into YouTube and then watch the YouTube video. Does that help?
Not really, no, because it just stops your browser from recording the history. It doesn't really stop anyone else in the chain from recording stuff.
So you mentioned VPN earlier.
Yeah, so I highly recommend Mulvad, because the reason is you can pay for it without using a credit card. You can pay for it using Bitcoin Cash. So therefore, they require no name, no address, no telephone number, no email address.
How do you spell that?
MULLVAD.net.
Cool.
It's great. Absolutely brilliant service, and I use it all the time. This is a great way to, obviously hide your traffic, and everything's encrypted until the endpoint. And you can choose whatever endpoint you like in multiple different countries. I choose Japan, but you can choose whatever you like.
Graphene OS.
Graphene. Okay, so graphene is. I discovered graphene a couple of years ago.
Okay.
It's basically just Android. It's pure Android.
Okay.
So
without the spyware.
and people will say, "Oh, but Android's Google, right?" So, well, yes and no. Android itself is the AOSP, Android Open Source Project. That's open source. They have funding from Google, but they have funding from lots of other organizations as well. That's open source and sticks to the open source principles, in terms of the licenses, etc. Graphene is a fork of AOSP, and it's hardened for security and privacy. And I've been using it now for a couple of years, and it's fantastic. It only works on, ironically, Google Pixel phones. So you have to go and buy a phone from the enemy.
A SIM-free.
But isn't this great? It's because Google makes they make this phone with kind of the least restrictive proprietary drivers and whatever. So it's all open source. So the radio circuitry, it's usually the radio circuitry for the connecting to the cell towers and the Wi-Fi circuitry. Those are usually proprietary. If you buy a phone from other manufacturers like Samsung, whatever, they've always got some sort of proprietary thing somewhere, and it makes it hard. So there are alternatives. There's Lineage. It used to be called Cyanogen Mod. I used to use that for years and years before. But they try to be open to everyone and everybody, and you end up being supported by some kind of teenager in his bedroom for your particular model of your particular phone need.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really work all that well, and it's not all that secure either. Whereas graphene is all about security. It's got this hardened. The boot mode is secure. So I highly recommend everybody to look into this. I've actually got a lot of people in the Bitcoin Cash community to start using these now. I've probably got 15 people now using graphene phones.
I see them every time I go. Yeah,
and it's fantastic. And there's no learning curve really. It's just Android. It's just, you don't have to learn a new thing. Okay, we've got a bunch of Apple heads who are like, oh, what does it mean? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I said, we just click the icon and to launch the application. That's it's fairly straightforward. Yeah. Things are laid out a bit differently. And so, yeah, granted, there's a bit of a learning curve for some.
But I think everybody should know how to use different operating systems.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not that much different. I mean, how can we click an icon to launch an application? That's basically it, right? And then once you're in the application, it's whatever it is, right? So I don't know why this, this kind of resistance sometimes, but I am seeing a lot more interest in this, and if anybody's interested, please contact me. I'm happy. I don't buy the phones myself because actually the only place you can buy the phones is on Google website itself, which requires a Google ID. So a friend of mine is quite happy to just order loads of them for me and just hand them over to me. Or you can just go to Akihabara and buy used ones. That's fine.
Pixel.
So I'm using a Pixel 6a. Okay. And the really nice thing about this is that it's got 5 years ahead of software updates, like vulnerability updates and patch updates. Right? You don't get that if you buy a Samsung phone or whatever. The lifetime is usually 2 years or something. They just ditch you, and they try and force you to, like Apple as well. Same with Apple. Right? You've got to move on, right? This is 5 years.
I worked on a case. Let's see. What can I say about this? I worked on a case that had to do with semiconductors, and during that time, I learned that companies that use lithium-ion batteries, they will source them, saying, "Okay, we need this to work for 2 years."
Yeah.
And what's the best price we can get? And they're all bidding on the best price. So basically, that phone is going to be good for 2 years, roughly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But this has 5 years of.
But what I'm talking about is actually software end of life built in. Apple, they build in end of life in the software. they make their software slow down programmatically. It's nothing to do with the battery.
And what's annoying is that
so you're paying all this extra, money for the brand name, and then they are basically slowing down your phone because they want to tie you into the next upgrade.
Well, then the annoying thing is I use a bunch of different apps, and I use iPhone, I use Apple for editing my YouTube videos. So I'm probably the complete polar opposite of you as far as this. But I appreciate your perspective, and I want to learn more about it. I might end up getting if I have a reaction to something like, oh, what's that? It's something I'm interested in, and then I might think about it for a while, and then eventually get it. So who knows? But there are some apps that I use because I do e-commerce. There's some apps that I use, and you go to log in, and it says, would you like to update? And I always press skip. But sometimes you can't open the app until you update, and that is so annoying. It's so annoying. It drives me crazy. So what's the downside of using an Android / Google phone or an iPhone? What's the downside, first of all?
Well, for me, there isn't a downside. For me, it's all up, because even if it's pain, like for example, I love to use the Bitcoin.com wallet, right? Okay. Bitcoin.com wallet isn't 100% open source because there's some back-end component of the software that is closed source. So I have to use a mirror of the Google Play Store. Okay, but that's okay. I can work around that, and I can get past that. So I think the only downside is that there aren't that many people using it. I want more people to use this.
But as far as the downside of using Apple or Google, is there a downside? Is there a risk? Is there privacy or?
Oh, 100%, absolutely. I mean, if you're using a Google phone, it's tracking you. If you're using an Apple phone, it's tracking you. During the so-called pandemic, I call it the plandemic, right? They pushed out updates into your phones that tracks your location. And they are tracking you. They're looking at who you are, where you are, and
proximity sensors too. So if you're near somebody who ended up getting the coof, you can actually get flagged for that.
Exactly.
Being in the same geology.
Imagine how that can, I mean, they really have. I mean, they've started to use this against us, right? This is an anti-privacy, anti-freedom thing, right?
Even years ago, I told you I was in the prosecutor's office in Detroit, and I ended up watching a lot of crime thrillers on TV, or reality TV, my guilty pleasure at the time. And they would actually find killers using their cell phone. And here's another crazy thing. I was visiting Europe, with my brother in Scandinavia. And of course, before I get in the airplane and leave Japan, I put my phone on airplane mode, and I didn't take it off. I used Wi-Fi at their house. But when I got back to Japan, all my pictures had the exact location. You were at such and such the picture has the metadata for that location. And so I was looking through, I'm like, oh, this is so convenient. I know all the names of the castles, the lakes, the seaside. And I'm like, wait a second. My phone was on airplane mode the whole time. What?
Airplane mode doesn't mean location setting is off.
Right.
That just means Wi-Fi and
data.
Bluetooth is off, I think.
5G is off, man.
Yeah.
So that really freaked me out. I was like, wait a second. All my pictures are correctly geotagged.
So this simply comes back to, are you in control of your devices? Are you the person who is completely in control of the things that you own? And I think the only answer to that is it open source? Yes or no? If you've got God knows what, like an iPhone or an Apple Watch, whatever, the answer is no. They are in control of your device. You're the product. They're tracking you. You think this is your product. No, you are the product of them.
Especially if it's free, you're the product.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you got to ditch these things, and people need to start waking up and realizing, like, if you want freedom, you've got to stop You could. I'm talking stop starting thing now. Stopping.
No double negatives, please.
Vic Reeves used to use it. It's a stop starting thing. Are we going to start stopping or stop starting?
Either
You've
way,
got to stop.
don't use it.
Using
Okay.
the products that are tracking you, and you've got to actually stop compromising on this, because this is the thing. Most of the people I talk to, they kind of agree with what I'm saying, and then they go, "Oh, yeah, okay, all right," and then they walk off, and then they start using Line or WhatsApp or whatever, and they're back into the normal world, and they're back into the gulag. I call it the gulag because ultimately it is the gulag, because this is the digital gulag. They are gathering information on all of us. And that's going to be used against us for whatever purposes they want to use. And I'm just, whether that's a conspiracy or not, I don't know, but I don't want people gathering information from me unless I give consent. And that's why I use open source software as much as I can.
Okay. Cool. And this phone, you can get this phone like a Pixel 6 or something.
So yeah, so it's a little bit, as I said, it's a bit counterintuitive. You have to go and buy a Google phone, but then you have to wipe it off. You wipe off the software that's provided, and you install Graphene OS. It's a fairly simple process. You got to hold a few buttons together on the device whilst connected to a laptop or another phone, and it takes about 20 minutes or so, and you can install Graphene OS, and you've then got a pure Android hardened for security, hardened for privacy. So it's great.
In Japan, we have the major carriers, NTT, SoftBank, etc. Can you use a carrier, or what? How do you make?
Yeah, just plug in any SIM card is fine.
Oh,
or use an eSIM.
Okay. Oh, so eSIM would be a digital SIM, like a software SIM on the phone?
Yep, you can use eSIMs. Yeah, it works. I've tested it. It works.
Wow. So if I were to call your phone number that's on your business card, for example, it would ring to you.
Yes.
But you're not using SoftBank then?
No, I'm using IIJ.
Okay.
Which is through big camera.
Okay. So you have all the capability of a smartphone in Japan then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, as much as I'm talking about privacy and stuff, I also have to, maintain some sort of business presence. So I do need to have a regular telephone number. So, I had to comply with KYC, et cetera, to get that phone number. But what I'm trying to say is, using Graphene, you can install Graphene, and you can install whatever eSIM you like. Now, there are eSIMs available apparently from other countries where you can get an eSIM without KYC in your home country.
We should explain KYC.
Know your client. In other words, don't have to display, KYC means you have to display or prove your identity using some sort of government identity, like a passport or a driving license or something like that.
So this is a thing. I'm making a video on drones in Japan. If you fly something that's under 100 grams, you don't have to register it with the government. If you fly anything over 100 grams, in the US it's 200 grams, but in Japan it's 100 grams.
Really?
Anything under 100 grams is going to fly for about 10 minutes.
Right.
Basically useless. Yeah. And it's going to be about the size of a smartphone with 4 quad propellers on it. And if there's a breeze, it's going to fly away.
Yeah.
So basically they made it, if you want to use anything that you want to do aerophotography with, you have to register it. And then you have to KYC. So if you're a foreigner, you can use your passport. If you're Japanese, you need your family register or your seal impression registration or your, whatever. But the good thing is I found out if you're a foreigner, you can actually use your passport. But you have to register. And then when you go to fly, you have to tell the local authorities, I'm going to fly here.
In advance, yeah.
Yeah, in advance. And then they might say no. So if you're coming to Japan to film, good luck. Reach out to me, first of all, and I can actually help you get registered. If you're flying a drone over 100 grams and you want to fly in Japan and you plan to come here, if you're a content creator, contact me. But you know all my socials. But it's just funny. They made it. Japanese regulations to me are always really funny because it goes back to the lettuce inspection. Have you ever heard that one? The lettuce inspection is in the past, well, Japan basically doesn't want to import food. They want to stay, food secure, right?
Yeah.
So in the 90s, when there was a rice shortage and people imported rice from Thailand and different countries, everybody said it tasted terrible. Japanese rice is better because we have better water, which comes from the same sky as everybody else, but whatever. But they're very protective of their agriculture. So when a foreign country would send lettuce to Japan, they would say, well, the lettuce is rotten. And then they would let it sit on the dock for 2 weeks, enclosed in the summer, and open it up and say, oh yeah, look, I told you it was rotten.
Yeah.
So Japanese regulations are very much like that. It's just kind of a backhanded way of saying, you can fly any drone you want as long as it's under 100 grams, but you have to KYC your drone. So I hear this a lot at the crypto meetups where people will say, yeah, I was using this exchange and I was buying crypto, blah, blah, blah. And I was doing this and sending it back and forth to my brother, my aunt, my uncle. And they KYC'd me. He uses a verb, right? So, and that happened to me. I was using an exchange and I was staking crypto, but you had to use their coin.
Yeah.
And you would get paid interest for staking crypto. And then they sent me an email one day that said, it was a KYC email. They said, we need your ID. And I'd used my American address to register because it's always easier. And they said, well, we just need your government ID, like your driver's license. And I go to get my driver's license. It was like expired 2 years ago.
Oops.
So I couldn't, even if I wanted to, I couldn't have.
Yeah.
If I wanted to use my passport, it doesn't have my address. So I couldn't. And then they said, well, you have two options. Either leave your coins exactly as is today and never do any exchanges, or you can remove your money, your coins. And so I went to withdraw, and this is where I learned the word dust, right? I had something like 2 Satoshis worth of crypto left. Right. And I went to withdraw. Let's say I had $100. I went to withdraw and I said, withdraw $100. They said, no, you got to pay a fee. Okay. What's the fee going to be? Well, we don't know. Okay. So I'll withdraw $99. And then it ended up leaving like 2 cents or a penny on the exchange. So I said, okay, close my account. You can't close your account because you have money in there. Mm-hmm. I said, you know what? If I just leave it as is for the next 10 years, they're eventually going to just close it.
Yeah.
Automatically I just thought this is so ridiculous. The whole KYC thing is so annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my rant.
No, absolutely. Yeah. This goes completely against cryptocurrency.
Right.
The whole point is you download a wallet, you've got the power to send and receive money to anybody, anywhere in the world for free.
Yeah.
Or virtually for free.
Yeah.
That's cryptocurrency. Everything else is a distraction. All these exchanges, FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried and his big fucking hair, and his $1 billion donation to, according to Elon Musk, he donated $1 billion to the Democratic Party. Right?
Wow.
He is in bed, or was in bed, probably still is, with the establishment. And so
he was in bed with 10 people.
Yeah. So I don't shed a tear at all for these people. This has nothing to do with crypto.
Exactly.
There's nothing almost, this is so divorced from crypto, from what we do.
And just like Bernie Madoff has nothing to do with the stock market. He was just a scam artist who used shares.
Yeah.
Right. And so I have a few friends in Tokyo that are trying to deprogram me. They think I'm in a cult. Right. And so they're trying to do an intervention and saying, you got to stop doing crypto. It's a scam. And then every time something like FTX happens, like, I told you, Bitcoin's a scam. I'm like, you're not even making a sentence there.
Yeah.
Like, come on. But they're my friends and I love them. So I just say, okay,
you can just say, look,
fine.
We've seen this at least 2 or 3 times a year before.
Sure.
I mean, I go back to prior to Gox. I mean, Mount Gox was like the big one.
Well, it's like when your girlfriend in high school breaks up with you. You're like, oh, can't trust girls. It's like,
yeah.
This happens every day.
Yeah.
Just like a high school romance.
Girls are perfectly fine, by the way.
I love
listeners. We love them really deeply.
In a very platonic way, in a very non-weird way.
Some of them are great.
This is just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Incredible.
I have nothing bad to say. So
they're always great. Yeah,
absolutely, and wonderful.
I hope we've cleared that one up.
We have, yeah. But what I mean is, like, let's say a high school relationship. You think, because my age, and maybe we're near similar age. My age, my grandparents met when they were 13 years old, and both of them, that was their first boyfriend and girlfriend, and then they get married and have kids, and then my parents met. I think my mom was 16. First boyfriend, my dad. They get married, have 5 kids, and were married for 55 years before he passed, I think. Maybe longer. But so now you think, okay, I meet this girl in high school, this is it. This is the one. And a week later she's like, oh, I like Johnny better. So then you think like, oh no, I'm not made for dating or something. It's a horrible analogy, so I should probably edit this part out. But the analogy is like it didn't last. It was not meant to last. It was maybe like a learning or growing experience. But the same thing when a crypto exchange or some influencer does a rug pull. And what's a rug pull? Right.
Yeah, it definitely is a rug pull. Right?
Somebody pulls the rug out from under you. That's a crypto scam or any kind of scam. Yeah. Right. It's a rug pull.
And the key point is, if you have to trust somebody, there's a risk of a rug pull. And the whole point of crypto in the first place was you shouldn't have to trust somebody.
That's right.
The problem is, over the recent, 5 years or so, there's been this massive influx of newbies, and they're all just setting up exchange accounts on FTX or Binance or
these cult type leaders that are influencers and very charismatic, and they make these videos.
They're watching YouTube videos, and it's all about get rich and just invest in the crypto. Nobody talks about using the crypto, and that's the difference between them and me and the people who I I'm dealing with here in Tokyo and regionally
and around the world.
We use Bitcoin Cash. We use it every day, and that's the whole point. If we don't use it, then it becomes a silly, pathetic Ponzi scheme like BTC is now, right? Because there's no utility. If nobody's actually using it for something, then it's just trust us. The value is going to go up. And you're speculating on the future value of other speculators, speculating on the future value of something else.
Yeah.
As Roger keeps saying, like, you just end up being a speculator, and it's nonsense.
Bring that microphone in there.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. I'm talking.
You can pull it toward you. Yeah.
So, where do we get to? We talked a bit about graphene phones. So, look, I would love everybody to look into Graphene OS. If you're pissed off with the fact that you're using Google or Android and knowing the fact that your phone is spying on you, look into it. There's not that much of a learning curve, and we can help you.
If you know how to use a smartphone, there's just...
Using Graphene OS is just exactly like using Android. There's no difference.
Just a smartphone, yeah. So, well, I have one of each. And by one of each, I mean I have an Apple and I have an Android.
Okay.
And I use Android for some things, and I use Apple for some things. But I think everybody should be bilingual. I mean, I have also had days where I go from a Windows computer to a MacBook. I don't use Linux. I installed Red Hat one time, and then it wasn't compatible with my printer driver. And then somebody said, "Oh, you're using the wrong hardware." Oh, God, forget it. I reinstalled Windows 98.
Don't let that taint your experience.
Well, it's just.
I mean, this is probably like
this is
100 years ago, right?
No, like 2003, 2004.
Yeah. So we're now in 2022.
That's true.
Right. So Linux is amazing now. I mean, I've used. Well, as you said, I started off with Red Hat and then Mandrake and, Gentoo and all these different flavors of Linux. And I love them all. Currently, I'm using a couple of different versions of Linux. I've got a Raspberry Pi using Manjaro Linux and a laptop using another flavor of Manjaro Linux. Amazing. Fantastic. Everything works. And it's just so nice to know that I'm using a system that isn't being tracked. It's not sending home messages to Bill Gates and his, organization or whoever. Right?
Well, and as we found out with some companies, when they get bought, if you buy a company, you also buy all the customer data.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Who knows? So you could say, for example, I only want to deal with a Japanese company, and they're here in Tokyo, and they store all my data. That's fine. Okay, I'm comfortable with that. Maybe. And then they get bought by another company in another country, and all that customer data goes with it. Or I've worked in cross-border litigation. If they get sued by a foreign government, for example, all that data could go to the U.S. Even if it's a Japanese company, if they're in the stream of commerce in the U.S., they get tagged for antitrust or FCPA or something like that. Then they're subject to discovery by U.S. court rules. So, so now I'm starting to see your point. Why I don't want my data out there. I've just convinced myself.
Yeah. So look, I mean, all this is optional. It's nobody's forcing anything, but you can get a phone, go out there and buy a Google phone and install Graphene OS. It's pretty easy to install. It can take you like 25 minutes or something, and you've got yourself a really nice hardcore privacy and security based phone, open source. And don't then go and install Line and WhatsApp and all those shit that's surveillance on top of that.
Yeah.
Because I've had this conversation with certain
Sure.
people. Like, oh, now I'm free. Oh, but how would I install Line? Like, no, you can't install Line.
That's what you got this for.
You've got to have the right mindset to, like, are you in favor of privacy and freedom or not?
Yeah.
Right.
And also look at the phone as it's a tool for me. It's for my convenience.
That's right.
So what do I need to do with it? I like to take pictures and videos.
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen the Graphene OS phone.
Yeah.
Camera. Works wonderful. I would want to send emails, text messages, maybe watch a video.
Yeah.
That's about it.
And you can still sync stuff. I mean, I was talking to one of our members last night. I just sold her a Graphene OS phone, which I purchased, no profit made or anything. It was just like,
At cost.
Yeah. Spreading the good love, And I said, look, one of the main things people want to do is like they want to share their contact, or they want to migrate their contacts from their old phone to the new phone, and their passwords and their bookmarks and all the things that are personal to them. So I said, okay, probably need a cloud account, but don't want to use an Apple cloud account or a Google cloud account. So actually, I run my own cloud. Myself for my own purposes. So I suggested you could run your own cloud account, or you could use mine. It's up to you, right? You could trust me, but then trusting me is like trusting Google. So
you just don't trust
the person. You don't have to trust me. You can set up your own server. It's very, very easy. And you just install something called Nextcloud.
Okay.
And then, all of those things that Apple and Google would normally do, like taking care of all your, synchronizing your photos, synchronizing your passwords and login accounts and everything else. That's done. But you own the account in the cloud yourself. It doesn't belong to the bastards who we know as the the predator elite.
Them. Yeah, it doesn't belong to them.
Exactly. It's nice. So that's where I am right now. So I'm just trying to teach people about educate.
We're obviously very passionate about privacy and privacy.
Yes.
And however we say
both
it.
pronunciations.
Tomato, right?
Yeah. But don't get me on potato to potato. That was just a silly song.
Was it?
Do you remember that? You say tomato, I say tomato. You say potato, I say potato. No, nobody says potato. I'm sorry, that they made that up for the song in the musical, whatever that stupid musical was. Nobody says potato. I'm sorry.
I've never heard it.
Ridiculous.
I've gone around the world and searched for people who say potato, and I never heard it.
No,
so
you won't find them.
Japanese say potato. Pretty close.
Maybe. But okay, but not in the same context. It's not in the same context as was implied by that silly song in the musical, whatever it was.
French fries in Japan, what they call them, potato fry, right?
Okay.
I've heard recently people say French fry. but it was always potato fry.
Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta love Japan.
We have to love Japan. Yeah.
I love it. How long have you been here?
I've been in Japan for nigh on 20 years.
Wow. And this is probably not your first foreign country, right?
No, I've also lived in Italy.
Oh,
Sicily, to be more precise, which is wonderful because when I was living there, it was during the time of the major volcanic eruption of Mount Etna.
Ooh.
And also the attempted government takedown of the mafia. So there were multiple assassinations. The assassinations with the mafia taking out the government guys.
Whoa.
And there were tanks and machine guns on the street and everything. It was pretty intense.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then I lived in Singapore, which was amazing, lovely. My family lives in Singapore now. My wife and my daughter, my son actually lives now in Scotland, but he's going back to Singapore soon. And then Hong Kong for a couple of years. I love Hong Kong. Wouldn't want to be there now, but given what's going on. And then, of course, here. So
the quintessential
Tokyo is amazing. It's great.
You're like the quintessential British expat, then.
Well, you know, perhaps.
Right on. There's a lot of British in Tokyo, right?
Actually, to be honest, I don't know that many British people here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know, actually, Americans always distinguish between British. I normally say like English, Scottish, or Welsh, or whatever, because they are different countries.
Yes.
Although Americans always just categorize everyone together. Because you're racist. Joking.
Actually,
but no. There's if you go to the Irish bar in Akasaka, Black, that's probably where you'll meet a lot of people from England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales.
Okay. Yeah. No, because I worked with a woman from Wales. She was absolutely cool. She's from Hong Kong, and she called herself British. Mm-hmm. I said, "Wait, I thought you were from Wales." And she said, "Yeah, British." And then I had to actually pull it up using a search engine.
But she was left wing, right?
I have no idea. We never we worked together, which means we never talked about politics. So, but I had to look it up, and there were the circles, right? Yeah. There's England, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, and then there's the British. So I had to actually learn that because they don't teach you in American schools. So even though we fought each other, like, you know.
Well, yeah, you know.
Here's the cool thing is now there's a British guy and an American guy talking about freedom from government. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it is, and I think I think that just sort of stepping back on everything. Whenever I talk to people from whatever country, a lot of people seem to lose focus on the fact that we are all under attack from all governments. It doesn't matter which country you're talking about, whether it's Japan or England or UK or US, Canada. We are all under attack by our own governments. They're like an occupying force in our own countries. Think about that. Like, I was listening to ukcolumn.org, and it's a very, very good website, by the way. I recommend your listeners to listen to ukcolumn.org, and they have great coverage. They say our country is now, we have an occupying force. They're in the government. Our government is captured, and they are attacking us, the people, with injections, with stay-at-home orders,
surveillance,
stupid laws that are internet safety bills where you're not allowed to say something online, all this kind of shit, right? They're attacking us. They are against us, normal people. These people are an occupying force, and we should treat them as such, and we should fight against them as such. And this is the problem. Most people don't grasp it. Like, Japanese people think, our government must be on our side, and English people, our government must be on our side, and it's all like thinking as if they're trying to make it sort of national boundary level. No, it's not. They're all against us, and they're all saying exactly the same thing. They're singing from exactly the same hymn sheet.
What is very interesting, somebody said to me, and I don't remember where it was or if it was connected to crypto or not, but we were having a conversation. He looked at me and he said, You sound like you think there's such thing as a sovereign government.
Yeah.
I was like, and I had to think about like it.
Who said that?
It was a friend of mine from overseas who was visiting, and I was like,
yeah. That's a dated concept. It's like that doesn't exist anymore. They're all captive. I mean, look at the UK, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we had Johnson. I'm not going to call him Boris Johnson. I'm going to fucking Johnson because he's a wanker. I loved him to begin with because he's all about Brexit and everything. It all sounded great. And then when you look at what he ended up doing, locking down the country and listening to Professor Neil Ferguson, who's got a very checkered record on his previous, history of things like mad cow disease and culling all the agricultural animals and everything. I mean, he was a complete tosser. And then replace him with Liz Truss. What the F? And then suddenly another one, Sunak. And then so in the UK now we've got a choice. If I was eligible to vote in the United Kingdom, which I'm not because I've lived outside for more than 15 years, if I were, I've got the choice between Sunak, who is a World Economic Forum young leader and fully on board with Klaus Schwab's,
that guy,
bullshit agenda, or Sir Keir Starmer. I say Sir because he's knighted by the Queen, the former Queen, and of course endorsed by the current King, who is fully on board with the World Economic Forum as well, because he opened up the whole conference on the Great Reset. King Charles, formerly known as Prince Charles, was this is a marvelous opportunity to reset the world's economy. We must look at how we can, I think capitalism has failed and we must reset it, with his big ears and everything. So that's what he said in a nutshell.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So Keir Starmer is in the other camp of the Trilateral Commission. He's a fully paid up, card-carrying member of the Trilateral Commission. I will recommend your readers and your listeners to research this. And so what have we got? We've got a choice between the Trilateral Commission or the World Economic Forum. Both of them are leading us to the same place, which is a globalist, technocratic, stakeholder capitalist, whatever they're going to call it.
That drives me nuts.
It's horrendous, and we're all going to be in the bloody gulag.
Stakeholder capitalism. I was in a meeting one time, and I've worked on the boards of different companies through my legal profession, and I've worked in global organizations and stuff, I've worked in cross-border litigation stuff, and I quoted directly from the charter. I said the purpose of the board of directors is to preserve capital preserve value for the shareholder. And somebody said, no, excuse me, for the stakeholder. I said, what? Said, no. It says right here in black and white, preserve value for the shareholder.
Yeah.
Somebody who's got some skin in the game. To me, and tell me if I'm wrong, because you know banking better, but stakeholder they haven't put $1 million of capital into the company, right? A stakeholder could be like, well, I work at the office, and so I have a stake in the company.
Could be anyone, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I'm a customer. I'm a stakeholder. Like
it's like with the LGBT quarter of the company with the stakeholders, So I was at a banking dinner recently, in the capacity of my job, and we had. I'm not going to name names, but all of the major CEOs, presidents, and business leaders of the Japanese banking organization. I was there as part of the host company, so we were hosting them. It was at the Andaz Hotel. It was marvelous, beautiful wine,
nice place.
Yeah, lovely, really, really nice. And the guy that was coming over to speak to them was the president of the bank that I work for. from Boston, with the biggest custodian bank in the world. And everything he said resonated with what we're hearing from the World Economic Forum and what we're hearing from the Trilateral Commission and what we're hearing from, it's the pre-planned narrative, whether the topic, he brought everything up in Ukraine. That night was actually the night when so-called Russian missiles landed in Poland, and therefore there's a big escalation going on. Ooh, we better hold our, be careful. And, when you look back at that, you say, well, actually, within minutes, the Polish media already said that's Ukrainian, that's not Russian, it's not a story. But the UK media and the European media and the Western media carried on for like 24 hours to just use this as another big warmongering thing. They want war. They're really pushing war, right? And I noticed that what this guy was saying was 100% aligned with, and actually there should be no surprise here. He's the president of one of the biggest banks in the world, and the media are puppets of the biggest banks in the world. And so, go figure. There is no difference between the media and the banks and the corporate world. And I'm sitting there biting my tongue. I mean, I could say, "Oh, it's a load of bullshit." Actually, and you start talking about climate change as well. That's the other thing. I'm like, actually, I'm from Norwich, which is in East Anglia in England. And in East Anglia in England, we have the University of East Anglia, which is where they have the climate research unit, where the emails were leaked in 2010. It was a massive scandal called ClimateGate. If you search it now, most search engines will probably just send you elsewhere. Then that was a non-event, Actually, if you look at it on BBC, they'll say, "Oh, ClimateGate was some horrible, nasty computer hacker hacked some very lovely, noble climate research people, and discredited their work, and it was terrible. And the police haven't yet found who the hacker is." End of story.
It seems to be a playbook. Let's say, for example, if you are a drug addict who's related to a world leader, and your laptop gets left at a repair shop.
Yeah.
First thing they say is, "That's not true." The next thing they say is, "That's old news."
Yeah.
Right. So that's what's happening right now. Well, that's old news. That's a distraction.
Yeah.
So there's a playbook.
But ClimateGate was incredible because it blew the whole climate change bullshit out of the water. It's like, no, this is all bullshit. Everything that you've been led to believe is based on phony numbers. Here's the evidence. Here are the emails that shows that it's all bullshit, because and this is the organization that fed the numbers, the so-called hockey stick, into I think the Kyoto Protocol or one of the earlier protocols. And here it all is. It's evident. And
wow.
And actually, I must recommend to everybody who's listening, read James Delingpole's book called Watermelons. James Delingpole was the journalist from the UK who broke the story. He wasn't the journalist who leaks it. Somebody else leaks it, and then it kind of filters through to him. He broke the story, and that's how he got his name. Right? It was a massive global story, 2010. Massive! And now you search it online, it's airbrushed out of history. Doesn't exist anymore. ClimateGate, gone.
Wow.
But it was the biggest story of the time. The Kyoto Protocol, all the data that was fed into all these things that we're now paying tax on, is based on fake information. And ClimateGate proved it.
Well, I just like how the name keeps changing.
Sorry?
I like how the name keeps changing. First it was global warming.
Oh, no. First it was global cooling.
Oh,
the Ice Age. Okay, let me point you back to The Clash. The Ice Age is coming. The sun's zooming in, right? 1978 or something.
Oh my God.
It was all about the Ice Age was coming.
The river.
London was going to be
London
under ice. they sorry to the younger listeners, but we were told that London would be frozen because the new ice age is coming, because we're all being too naughty and bad as people. And they kept pushing this and pushing it.
Global
You can hear this in lyrics in songs. The ice age is coming in the Clash.
One of my favorite albums, a double album, by the way. I got that for Christmas one year in the 80s. And
the biggest selling album of the 1980s, actually. Yeah.
Every single song. Man.
Then it turned to global warming. But global warming didn't quite work because, there'd be like record snowfalls in New York or whatever, and it doesn't quite work. So, let's just change it to global climate change.
Climate change, okay.
What does that mean? We can just make it mean whatever we want it to mean.
So anytime there's a hurricane, which by the way, for the last 3
and this guy that came to Tokyo when I was at this banking thing, the global head of, by the way, sorry, I shouldn't say the name, but we've had 3 hurricanes this year. It's so amazingly crazy.
Yeah.
The climate change is such a big thing. I just wanted to walk up to him and say, you need to be exposed to the real information instead of the propaganda.
But anytime there's a hurricane, so I'm from the States, and like the last 250, 300 years, we have recorded hurricanes, right?
Yeah.
And every time there's a hurricane, they say, there it is, climate change. But if you look back, there have always been hurricanes. And now,
of course,
being from the States, when I took one of the most fascinating classes during college or university, during college was geology. And we talked about, the Great Lakes, how the ground is still rebounding from the ice age, from when the glaciers receded. They were that heavy. So every year every couple of years, the ground moves like 1/100 of a millimeter, but it's measurable. Right. So basically there's 10,000 years between ice ages. And that's what you learn in a geology 101 in university, right? And so, there is I believe there is climate change, but it happens
absolutely,
every 10,000 years. So the North American...
nobody ever denied there's something called climate change, but is it related to man-made activity, anthropogenic global warming?
I wonder, because if all the ice melted before humans were on the North American continent, before the industrial age or industrial revolution, right? And then there's the Younger Dryas theory. There's the crater impacts in the Midwest in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so massive melt off and die off. And that was before humans were in North America, and that was before the Industrial Revolution. So how could we be impacting climate? Right? You know who the hell impacted climate? This is no joke. Genghis Khan.
Right.
You know how many millions or tens of millions of people he slaughtered? He killed so many people that it actually changed the carbon footprint of the world.
Really?
That is no joke.
I didn't know that.
That is no joke. Yeah. So there is there's a footprint. I mean, everywhere you walk, there's a footprint, right? So if there's 1 million people living in a certain location and we burn wood to cook or whatever, there's going to be the results of humans living in an area, right? But he killed so many people that it changed how humans interacted with the environment. It was that massive of a scale. And so I think people should actually be using Genghis Khan as a slur. He's worse than Genghis Khan, right? Shouldn't that be the accusation?
Well, I'm slightly skeptical about that because I think any human activity is insignificant to the planetary climate. It doesn't matter. I mean, you could burn 50 million people. I don't think it would make any difference to the climate. I think possibly this might be some sort of, I don't know, politically driven thing.
If cows are the enemy, I did my part because I had steak for lunch.
Excellent. Good.
Right? Good. They're burping and farting and destroying the earth. Well, I did my part. I had steak for lunch. So there we go. There we have it.
Exactly. and think about it, what carbon dioxide is such a tiny, tiny, minuscule percentage of the atmosphere. So, like, whenever people say, "Oh, you're affecting blah blah blah," whatever, try to get them to quantify it. Like, what are you talking about? Seriously, carbon dioxide is a good thing.
Yeah,
I love
trees
carbon
need
dioxide. Trees, plants,
the ocean.
valleys. Why are valleys lush and green? Because carbon dioxide is heavier, so it sinks. So that's why you've got like lush green valleys. And then you go up the mountain, you've got tufty, short grass because there's not enough carbon dioxide. And that's why. It's great. Carbon dioxide is a fantastic thing. We all need it. Every living organism. Organism.
It's a hard
Whiskey's kicking in. Needs it. Organism needs.
I'm glad you didn't say the other word.
Orgasm.
I thought you were going to say orgasm.
We could always throw that one in there as well, every now and again. Actually, you probably do need a bit of carbon dioxide to have an orgasm, I think.
Carbon dioxide?
Yeah.
Yeah, hold your breath.
Well, there's obviously an energy exchange going on. So
yeah, absolutely.
Let's look into that. Let's commission a study.
Okay.
How many orgasms can you have per litre of carbon dioxide?
That's a really important question.
The girls versus boys. Actually, forget the boys. Let's just do it on girls.
Yeah.
Much more interesting study. Yeah. Am I censored?
And we're back.
You have to speak your mind, right? It's freedom of speech.
That's right. Yeah. I think we've spoken. I think we pretty much covered everything, right? So we covered Bitcoin Cash. We covered privacy. We covered Graphene OS.
And some of the new things coming on Bitcoin Cash.
Yes. Some new and exciting things coming on. And how people can get in touch with Bitcoin Cash in Tokyo.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
What's the best way for somebody to find a meetup?
Well, you can, as much as though I don't like centralized kind of Facebookish systems, meetup.com, we do have an account on meetup.com, and this does actually provide probably one of the best ways for people to catch us if they haven't heard of us before.
Yeah.
But I'm also running a session group.
Okay.
And if people don't know about Session, go to getsession.org, download Session, and go to Bitcoin Cash on the meetup.com website. You'll find my session ID and you can link up to me there.
Cool.
And we can, catch up.
And normally
you can find out where we are on meetup.com.
Yeah.
Basically.
And normally I ask my guests for their social media, but you just said get off of Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. So
yeah, my social media is come and meet me in person.
There you go.
I'm a nice guy.
You are. That's why I had you on.
Yeah. I like to just say, look, how would you meet people back in the 80s?
Yeah. Go to a bar.
Yeah. That's my social media. Come and meet me. Let's talk face to face.
Yeah.
Let's get real.
I like that much better.
Yeah.
So I'm not. Please tell me again where you're from in England.
Well, I'm sort of from all over the place, but I just generally say London. But,
but did you grow up in a small town?
Well, I'm from countryside actually, and then sort of moved to Norwich, which is another sort of. Norwich is a city, but sort of countryside-ish city.
Okay. So
and then Newcastle. So like I've got all sorts of different angles of my English.
Small town boys tend to recognize each other. I'm from a small town.
Okay.
And you kind of seem like a small town guy yourself. So,
yeah.
And I think in some ways, also our generation tends to lead more to face-to-face communication, which.
I'd love to meet people face-to-face because I think interactions over text messages and whatever can often get.
Oh, it's terrible.
Like, I don't know, people get the wrong message or they misinterpret what you mean.
I lost a friend over an email.
Did you?
Yeah. And I was actually taking his side, and I said, hey, I see what you mean. I think this too. And he wrote back, very interesting. And I thought, oh, he found my comments interesting. And then I called him a couple of days later. He's like, you know what, can you do me a favor? Don't call me anymore.
Oh, why?
I was like, why? He said, oh, that email you sent me. I said, I was taking your side. And that's an example of how
text
is horrible.
Context can be lost
Yeah.
easily. Yeah.
It's a horrible way. Some people some people describe social media as processed information, just like processed food is bad for you. Processed information,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
it's crap. And it's, I have people all the time, dear friends of mine, family members say, "Oh, did you hear about John and Cindy?" And like, no. And well, it's all over Facebook. Oh, that's why I don't know. Oh, we'll check Facebook. And then here's the weird thing. Cindy will post, John was diagnosed with stage 2 blah, blah, blah cancer, and his platelets are doing this. Like, why are you saying that on social media?
What? Oh, God. Yeah.
And I just, I'm, once again, back to the prosecutor's office. We had a string of robberies at Christmas time where people would say, here's a picture of my brand new 60-inch TV. And here's a picture of my family in the Bahamas. TV out of town equals come rob me. Right? And that's why I don't say anything on social media. And when I used to use Facebook, I would say, here's a picture from last week in Hong Kong. I'm back home now.
Yeah.
But here's a picture where I was last week. So at least I was a little bit smart about it. Right? And I didn't check in every single place I went. Right?
Right.
Because first of all, you could be, let's say, for example, I'm at a really Anda's or Marriott or Grand Hyatt or Hilton, and I'm there at the restaurant, and I check in at the restaurant, and it says Tracy checked in at the Grand Hyatt. Oh, let's say my special lady friend checks my Facebook and says, "Oh, looks like you were here at the Grand Hyatt, huh? Who were you with?" Maybe it's a business dinner, But now it looks like something completely different, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So,
or I could be,
context is always lost. Yeah.
Or I could be at this place, which is next door to a place that I don't want to check in, but the geolocation's off by a little bit, and I just click, just like a zombie, just click, check in here, and then the next day, all my coworkers say, like, "Why were you at that place? That's
dodgy place.
That's a dodgy place to be. What are you doing there?" And
so, I mean, this is why I always say, just don't. I mean, well, okay, look, I just don't partake in social media at all.
Good for you.
Never. I don't have any social media account, and my life is happy.
Yeah,
I don't need it.
So much less.
And I think that people should look into that. Like, think about, why do you need Facebook? Why do you do this Instagram? I know lots of young people, especially young females.
Sure.
Like, I need Instagram. If I don't get Instagram, I'm going to be, like, they're almost like crying. No, you don't need it. If you try and explain to people that actually life is better without this, and you can interact in the real world by just meeting people, then
also,
I think that's a good thing.
If you're young and dating, one of the best ways to lose a relationship is to keep everything on Facebook or social media, because the new girlfriend's going to check and say, "Oh, last Christmas you were here with her."
Yeah.
Like, oh, great. And not everybody is perfectly secure. So if I were to meet a great, in another lifetime, if I were to meet a nice young lady who I'm thinking about spending the rest of my life with, and then I just, just say, "Oh, well, I want to know more about her," and like look up the past couple of years of her social media history, and I see her ex-boyfriend who's more handsome and more rich. Like, oh, great, this is gonna, So I think I've always tried to live my life as if I were going to run for office someday.
Right. Okay.
And it's all going to come out. Right.
In the US?
Nah, I'm not going to run for office. But
okay.
I've always tried to live my life that way. And also, as an attorney, I've worked in discovery, which, the discovery system in the US means that all the emails that I send back and forth, or all the interactions on my phone or my work device, whatever, people forget this. Because I send an email to Big V, and I think that you and I are the only two people who saw that. But John could be standing next to you when you open it. It's not secure. Or your company could say, "Hey, we think that Tracy and V are in competition, but why are they contacting each other by email? Let's just pull all their emails in the Exchange server and go through them." Or the government says, "We think Tracy and Tom are colluding on some kind of price. They're price fixing. Let's just pull all their emails." And you know what? I can't tell you how many people have been busted by things they put in email.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And busted and put in jail.
Right.
Or sorry, prison. Put in prison. And then, by the way, if you work for a massive company, not legal advice, by the way, if you work for a massive company or a small company, your company has great lawyers, but they're not your lawyer.
They're not my, not my side. Yeah. Exactly.
So if you work for Acme Bank and you get caught in a LIBOR scandal, for example, Acme's bank's lawyers and their law firm is going to take care of Acme Bank.
Of course.
And you need to get your own damn lawyer.
Yeah.
And you're going to pay for that yourself. And the consequences are you can go to prison, pay a fine, and probably never work in that industry again. So whatever you put in email, just be really super careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really super careful.
Understood.
And by the way, and I'm not just talking to you, but you would not believe the people. I've done all kinds of internal investigations. I can't talk about anyone specifically, but every once in a while I'll see a mention of a case I've worked on in a newspaper or on TV, and I want to say, oh, I worked on that case, but I just sit there and say, well, that's an interesting case, and hey, what's for dinner, and just don't talk about it ever. But let's say I worked on cases before that have made big news, and by the way, I'm not the rainmaker. I'm not the one in court. I'm in the background doing research.
Yeah,
you'll never see me, but you would not believe how many illicit affairs we've uncovered. So John and Tom are working for a bank and they're colluding on interest rates, and John is having an affair with somebody at the bank. And he's emailing her saying, hey, babe, we getting together tonight? My wife's out of town. Or whatever, And you've uncovered an affair. And that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for collusion. But now you got something else on him. And it's over, It's over for that guy. It's over. I can't tell you how many people I had another case, and I won't say anything specific, but I had one case. This guy was a baller. He was making in the high six figures, US dollars, driving the best car, living in a huge house, wearing the best watches and suits.
Tell me more.
Dating gorgeous women. And he got busted, and within a year, he was hospitalized for some kind of...
With what?
It's undiagnosed. But he's definitely not a baller anymore. So, which means whatever happened, he got busted. And when I first read, I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy he's living the life. Holy cow. Dating a supermodel. On the yacht, on the weekend. Nice car, nice house. Vacationing in different countries every other month, And then he got busted for whatever crime he committed. And I think it was stress. And he was basically, I don't know if it was a heart attack or stress or whatever it was.
Which country was he from?
I can't say. But he ended up in the hospital. And we discussed it between a couple of coworkers, and I came up with the obvious: crime doesn't pay.
Yeah.
So, bottom line is, I can't talk specifics, but first of all, don't do anything wrong. Okay, don't do anything you have to hide. Second of all, if you do, don't put it in an email.
Of course, yeah.
Don't be stupid. Like,
just to sort of come back to that. Yeah. I mean, everything that we're standing for in the Bitcoin Cash Tokyo group is all about not trying to do some bad stuff that's illegal. It's more like reclaiming the freedoms that we had before they were taken away.
Before the tech revolution. Yeah. And I think the tech revolution, sure, it's really convenient. I mean, you, on your way over, you sent me a message, hey, I'm in a taxi. I'm like, okay, I'll go downstairs and meet you. Right. That's really convenient. Because I remember the days before when we were kids,
and that was a decentralized message that the government couldn't.
Great, right? Now, in the old days, I would walk across the street to my friend's house. Hey, is Johnny here? Oh, no, I think he's at Billy's house. You walk over to Billy's house. Hey, is Billy here? Is Johnny here? Oh, no, I think they went to Frankie's house. Like, okay. And you go look for your friends, and you'd see where all the bicycles were. And that's how you know where the party is, right? When you're 10 years old, right? And so, hey, what are you guys doing? We're playing football. Cool. Okay. I guess we're playing football today. And life was so simple, right? But now, sure. So when I was a kid and I was my dad's remote control, I had to get up and click, change the dial, right? And so I remember, and that's why the commercials, still into the 80s would say, don't touch that dial when everybody had a remote control, right? But they still said, don't touch the dial. Or I think it was radio too. But I remember those days you had to ride around on your bicycle and find your friends. Now you go online like, oh, hey, everybody's at Johnny's house. Let's go. And you send them a message like, hey, I'm on my way over. And they're like, hey, pick up some candy on the way over, right? But I kind of miss those days in a way. Not that I miss being 10 years old. Like that was, actually, I don't miss high school at all. That was the worst time, but I survived it. But I kind of miss those days where everything's so simple. There were like 3-4 major channels on TV, right? And you had a good radio station in the car when you'd ride around running errands with your mom,
Yeah.
And then we got cable television with 500 channels and nothing good to watch. And then we got internet and social media. And it's just like, I tell you what, some of my happiest days are outside of the city, hiking or visiting. I love Japanese temples and shrines. I love doing that stuff. And I love spending one-on-one time with friends, or in small groups, and by the way, I have a thing with noise. Like I don't like loud places. So if I go to a place and I feel like it's too noisy, I gotta like take a step outside or something, And so if you see me in a big group and I just disappear, it's usually because it's too loud. Like, and that's just me. Like I'm just weird that way, right? But I really like face to face, and I really like getting together like this and talking. And I'm glad we had a chance to talk, V, because we've only met when there's a bunch of people around.
That's right.
And you're a popular guy, and somebody always wants something from you. Hey, V, I want a Graphene OS phone. Hey, V, what's going on in the market? Hey, what do you think about FTX? Hey, what's going on? Hey, you free this weekend, big guy? It's, so it's good to get a chance to just talk one-on-one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Time management is always tricky.
Yeah.
But you know what? Yeah. I follow Mike Cernovich. I mentioned Mike Cernovich earlier, who wrote the book Gorilla Mindset. Focus on the people who are adding value to you and not dragging you down.
Yeah.
Right. So everybody has people who's like constantly trying to like badgering you for things or agitating you for something, and they're effectively a drain on your time and not actually adding any value to you. But there are other people that you're in your group who help to bring you up.
Yeah.
As well as they rise up.
I gravitate toward them.
You simply have to just look at your group of friends and say, and like validate, like almost score them in your mind. Like, is this person helping me go up or helping me or reducing me to dragging me down?
Are they an emotional vampire, right? Like,
and those people who are bringing you down, cut them off.
Gotta cut them, yeah.
Cut them off. Simply just cut them off emotionlessly, and your life will become so much better. It's an amazing thing. It's almost like a euphoric thing.
Yeah.
And I did this recently. I had a guy, and I won't mention his name because he might be listening in. I don't know, but he'd be sending me messages at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and say, "Your group is shit. What are you doing? You're not. I'm boosting all these videos, and you've only got 24 people in your group, and I've got 300,000 people in my group. So you're shit." And trying to make sort of apples and oranges comparisons and stuff. And I realized I'm starting to get drawn into this, and then I suddenly realized, nope, that's just bullshit. Cut this person off, because that is it's a nonsense.
You don't have time for it.
It's nothing related to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Okay, he might be doing what he's doing, and that's great. He's boosting his videos and whatever. but I'm actually trying to connect to people and change people's behavior in a positive way to make them understand privacy and security and stuff like that, and to understand the threat. And the threat is the government that sits above us, not just the Japanese government, but all governments.
All of them, So I learned this with trolls a long time ago, and it came in handy very recently. Somebody left a comment on one of my YouTube videos, and the impulse is to respond and just like completely trash them and make them feel really small. But you know what? I left the comment there and didn't respond, and nobody else did.
Yeah.
Nobody. I have a good community of good people, and it started with grassroots. Like, you know, when I do a podcast, I'll tell all my friends and family, and then, you know, I was checking social media today, and I have a bunch of people following me I've never met. And up until a couple of years ago, it was only people that I met in person. So I'm going the opposite way.
Well, it's the same with me. I mean, it's really important for me. I mean, I've got this group on in the group, the Bitcoin Cash group. We have this application called Sessions chat group, and I only introduce people who come to the meetup. I don't want it to be, I don't want like 1 million people from all over the world. I only want it to be people who actually come in person. And this is the sort of different thinking, right? Because then I can communicate and connect with them in person.
And you put a face to the name, right?
And, you know, there's a proper connection instead of just a social media connection, which is just here today, gone tomorrow. So, I think that's really important.
It is. I love face to face. And I've enjoyed this conversation.
Well, me too. And just to sort of recap, I think, you know, I'm really, really excited about Bitcoin Cash and the development that's going on, especially cash tokens, because this is coming in May next year. And it's
maybe we should do another show and
let's perhaps maybe let's do another show after it happens. After
some of my best guests,
because this is
Peters.
This is going to. I think it's a technological game changer, because all the other changes out there, you know, the Ethereums and all the copycat Ethereums, like they're all kind of stuck in where they are. This is a game changer. It's bringing everything back to UTXO, and I think UTXO unspent transaction outputs and the contracts based on that is just as I think as Jason Drazen said, it's shockingly efficient.
Nice.
Like he didn't realize this until he actually designed it and put it into place. Like, oh wow, it's shockingly efficient.
Wow.
Compared to, you know, everything else.
Nice.
It's like 65 bytes or something, like crazy tiny little thing on the protocol. So it's, you know, you can take the most complex Ethereum smart contract, migrate it to Bitcoin Cash, and it, you know, over there on Ethereum, it would cost like $100,000 just to set it up. Over here, it'd be, who knows, pennies.
Wow, I like
incredible.
That. I like
this
that.
is game changing. And so this is what I want to try and like. I mean, I'm not really a mouthpiece for the development team, but you know, I'm more of a community person here. But this is stuff that I've just learned through podcasts and things. So I recommend, if people are interested in all this kind of stuff, come to the Bitcoin Cash Tokyo meetup. If you're not in Tokyo, that's fine. At least join the group, and you can find my session ID in the Tokyo Bitcoin Cash meetup group on meetup.com. And then I will add you into all the various groups, and you can learn more about it.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. And
it's been a great pleasure.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.